I'm Russ Bray, and you're listening to the weekly Dartscast. 180!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Christmas edition of the weekly Dartscast. I am Burton DeWitt, and I'm joined by my producer, or I should say our producer, even though Alex isn't here, Hanna Frostman. Hanna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us. We're giving Alex a little break for the holiday, but we'll be here to talk about the World Championship so far and maybe look ahead a little bit to the play between Christmas and New Year. 64 matches down, a third of the field remains, still 31 matches to go. But let's talk about those first two rounds that were played between Friday the 15th and, as of the time we're recording, yesterday, Saturday, the 23rd, probably a couple days ago at the time all of you are listening. But of those, 96 players who have competed so far, who has impressed you the most?
All right. First of all, we got to go with a big shout out to the biggest key player that has ever graced Alexandra Palace, the Alexandra Palace Wasp. Putting in extra hard yards, the work done with Ross Smith, absolutely legendary. In all seriousness, somebody needs to get rid of that Wasp problem. Somebody at Alexandra Palace, get your exterminators in. In terms of actual players, I have what I feel, especially considering we're going to discuss some of the international qualifiers later, I have some potentially slightly dark horse picks on this, and then some that are pretty obvious. My first one, in terms of impressed me the most, is actually Christian Kist, which I know seems bizarre given that he got knocked out by a 16-year-old. However, when he started playing Luke, their first set, they both finished with over 100 plus average. And as we know, Christian Kist has been struggling with injury and had a few really abysmal averages this year. And so I don't even know if Christian Kist thought he still had 100 plus in his locker. And I'm sure that if he knew that he had 100 plus in his locker, he certainly didn't think that that wasn't going to get him anywhere, especially playing a teenager. But as fate would have it, Luke Littler is no normal teenager. But I think for what he's struggling with and what he's battling through, that really kind of impressed me, that he was able to step up his game like that. You see a lot of kind of low averages in the first few rounds anyway, so I think I was kind of expecting Luke Littler to have not an ounce of resistance given how the last year has gone for him, so I was quite impressed with the fight he put up. Obviously to no avail, but still impressive. And in that regard, I don't know if I can say that Luke Littler is impressing me so much because I did kind of expect it from him. It's easy for people to get caught up in his age and overblow things. We've seen it with Bo. We've seen it with Leighton Bennett. People always want to compare them to next greats. They always want them to do more and more and more. However, a lot of the opportunities for younger players like that are in these tournaments that don't have crowds or are played behind closed doors, or, you know, if they do have crowds, they're smaller, the crowds, than most things. But Luke has really sought out a lot of opportunities to be in front of audiences and to try his hand at various different things. Obviously, some of these things didn't exist when other players were going through, but with like the Modus Super Series, which is played in front of an audience, and signing up for that so he can play more senior players and things like that. He's really done a lot of darts in the last year beyond just what's available with the development tour and, you know, WDF things. He's sought out at every corner darts. So I kind of expected that he would come out strong with this. So not as hugely impressed as impressed being the word, because, again, kind of expected. I will say I was quite impressed with Stephen Bunting versus Ryan Joyce. I mean, Ryan Joyce, before Luke went and smashed his average, had set the highest tournament average with his first round game. So he's definitely feeling in form. Stephen Bunting has been in fantastic form. on 107 average to start out your campaign is nothing to sniff at. So I knew it was in his locker. I was just impressed that he didn't need to bring all of that to beat Ryan Joyce, and yet he did bring all of that. And if he continues to bring all of that, it's going to be a seriously eventful World Championships for Stephen Bunting.
I mean, the only thing I'll disagree with what you said is that Bunting didn't need to bring all that, because I think you can make an argument that he did, because if you look at just how brilliantly Ryan Joyce played in the first round, and I do want to apologize to our listeners because we're recording over Christmas. At least I'm traveling right now, so if there's background noise during this recording, I am in a very full house with family right now, but tried to find the quietest corner. But maybe you can make the argument that he did need to play that well, because if you look at Ryan Joyce's first round match, and I actually had Ryan Joyce on my list of people to talk about, even though he went out, he averaged over 100, and he looked even better than that average against Alex Spellman. And Alex Spellman averaged in the mid-90s. And maybe we'll talk about him later when we get to talking about the international qualifiers. But Ryan Joyce just lived up to his nickname, Relentless, in that match. And there was every sign that he was going to be relentless as well against Stephen Bunting, but Bunting was just even more relentless. 116 average in the first set, but 107 in the end was maybe a bit lower than it looked at times. And he just made sure that Ryan Joyce never had a chance in that match, because Ryan Joyce would have taken any chance he was given, the way he had been playing in the first round and still was playing in the second round, and has been playing for the past few months. Bunting, I mean, it's early days. It's one round. It was 9 legs that he had to win, but he looked every bit like a contender to win the world title. And that should not be surprising if you've watched him this year. The question is, will he maintain that as we get into longer form matches? And that's really the only question mark. But Stephen Bunting looks like he can become a world champion again, first time in the PDC, the way he's playing. He was impressive, but it wasn't surprising. A few other players that I want to mention. Chris Dobie, a very good win over Willie O'Connor that looked like the Willie O'Connor of 12, 15 months ago, when I thought that he was ready to break through and move into the top 32. Didn't happen this year for Willie O'Connor, specifically in the first half of the year, where he struggled to get results. But he played well, but he never really had much of a chance against Dobie, even though it went all the way to the 5th set, because Dobie just always was hitting at the right time in that match. I think we should mention Luke Littler. I know you weren't surprised. I wouldn't say I'm surprised, but I want to talk just a little bit about him, because it's just a little ridiculous, some of the hype that has come up. He should never have been at one point the 3rd favorite for the title, at least right now. I'm not saying he can't win the world title, but we've never seen him play a best out of 7 set match, let alone best out of 13 against a Michael Van Geuren, against Michael Smith and Gerwin Price, one of those top players. Can he maintain that? And what we saw over the course of the match against Andrew Gilding is that his performance levels will slip. And when it did slip, he struggled to get back in and to find his way back. He fell over the line in that match because Andrew Gilding just fell. Andrew Gilding could not hit a double. And that's not to take anything away from Luke Littler. He still averaged over 90 in the end. He still played fairly well. But those last couple sets, he was struggling. And will he be able to maintain a 106 average when his opponent throws it back at him and nicks a couple sets? That's the question I have, and that's something that I have not seen an answer to yet. And he could very well go out to Matt Campbell, who is actually the next person on my list in this, because Matt Campbell, low to mid 90s both matches, really consistent, and just looks the part of a player who deserves to be in the 3rd round. Littler was impressive, but I think some of it's blown out of the water. Right now, I wouldn't even have him as one of the 10 most likely people to win the world title. And that's not to be an insult to him. It's just he's not shown me enough to think that yet. The first round, though, was brilliant. And I'll just mention a couple more names. We said we're going to come on to the international players, the international qualifiers later, but I'll mention a few of the Pro Tour qualifiers as well as the tour card holder qualifiers. But Ricky Evans, 2 brilliant matches, just absolutely pummeled Nathan Aspinall, losing just 2 legs. Nearly averaging a ton. Only the last couple legs dropped him below that. Ricardo Pietreczko hadn't kicked on as much as we might have thought he would since winning a Euro Tour, but he looked as good, if not better, in his first 2 matches here at Ali Pali. And then lastly, one of the tour card holders, Boris Kursmar. He's winning matches has always been the difficulty for him. He looks a top 32 player, but he then always finds a way to lose. Not so far in Ali Pali. 2 really good performances, 2 wins, and right now, I would say, finally living up in terms of results to the performances that he's done for years.
And with 11 seeds that were eliminated before Christmas, including 3 of the top 8, who were you most surprised to see knocked out at that first hurdle?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few that you can say. I mean, obviously, starting with the top 8, Peter Wright, who's now might fall out of the top 8, Nathan Aspinall, who was the last man to go out before Christmas, and Danny Noppert all falling at the first hurdle. Peter Wright has been inconsistent. He won the European Championship, but we've also seen times where he does not look like a top 64 player. We just don't know what Peter Wright we're going to get. I was surprised that we got such a poor version of Peter Wright, but I wasn't surprised that he went out to a player that I thought was the dark horse in this tournament, and I still stand by, is going to have a breakthrough year next year. I think he'll finish the year well in the top 32 next year and qualify for everything in Jim Williams. But Danny Noppert was surprising. Okay, we didn't see him in Minehead because he withdrew due to the birth of his second child, but he made the semifinals of the European Championship a little over a month before that. He made it to the last 16 of the Grand Slam of darts. He's been every bit a top 8 player this year, even if he hasn't exceeded on that UK Open title that he won last year. He's a much better player than we've ever seen from him before. And he didn't play poorly, I would say, in his match. He didn't win a set, but that was more just bad luck, losing 2 last leg deciders. But he didn't play as well as he could have. And to go out to a Scott Williams, who's been struggling this year, really surprised me, especially to go out in straight sets. Nathan Aspinall as well, never got going. He played okay at the end to pull his average over 90, but he was so far adrift of Ricky Evans for most of that match. Ricky Evans was brilliant, not to take anything away. Even if Nathan Aspinall was playing at his best, that match could have gone either way, the way that Ricky Evans was playing. But Ricky Evans just absolutely destroyed him. And to see Nathan Aspinall, who won a major a few months ago, be that far adrift of a player who backed into this field surprised me. And I'll just quickly mention 2 more. Jose de Sousa. He played probably better than I thought he would have, but I just, and maybe this is disrespect for Jeffrey de Graaf, I just didn't expect Jeffrey de Graaf to be able to match his first round performance, let alone exceed it, especially against a player like Jose. But Jeffrey de Graaf was just brilliant, and Jose never got going after they went off the stage for the second break after the second set. And then lastly, Kim Huybrechts not even winning a leg. Not surprised per se that Kim Huybrechts lost that match. I actually thought he would. But to not win a leg, the first seed to get whitewashed in legs in 6 years at the World Championships. James Wilson in the then second round, last 32 against Michael van Guren, lost 4-0, each set 3 legs to nil. That's the last time a seed went legless. Kim Huybrechts, that's the worst I've ever seen from Kim Huybrechts by a country mile. And not that he lost, but losing like that surprised me.
Yeah, in terms of surprises, again, weird wording in some of these. Josh Rock versus Barry Van Peer was a little bit of a surprise for me. Obviously, Josh Rock hasn't had the back half of the year that he was having at the beginning of the year or last year, where he was absolutely destroying. But with Barry Van Peer, he has been getting over the dartsitis and stuff with being in front of that big, huge crowd again. I did think there would be a little more in it. Again, no disrespect to Barry Van Peer. I just figured there would be, like I said, a little bit closer, a little bit more of a struggle, a little bit more difficult for Barry to find his footing instead of coming out of the gate immediately having it and being under a point different in the averages between them. And that is just kind of like I said, not a huge surprise out of the three I have listed, but it was a bit startling that there wasn't more in that. I think the biggest surprise for me was Peter Wright, not because Jim Williams isn't fantastic, but Peter Wright. I think people just constantly overlook how much Peter manages to bring his A game consistently toward the back end of a year. He will almost always start the year looking a bit scrabby, as it were. People will say, who is this? When he, was world champion, they're like, I can't believe this guy's world champion. He's never going to win anything again. And then right as it gets to the time when it counts and when it's going to arrange your seating and when it's going to keep your card solid, he always finds that extra level. So when he was talking about how he wants to win more world championships, I really thought he'd come out of the starting blocks really hot. And Jim Williams is fantastic. He really is. It was one of those scenarios where if you look at the seeded players, you kind of go, oh, goodness, I kind of wish he would have drawn somebody a bit further down the order because, I'd like to see Jim continue to make it through, and I think he could roll over somebody else easier. So it was startling for me that Peter didn't find that level of his game that he always seems to have at the back end of the year. And the other one is James Wade. Was fairly surprising for me. Not because Matt Campbell doesn't have a fantastic game about him. He really does. But Wade, we've talked about waiting before, where your opponent sets an average and you go like 1 point ahead of them. And even though statistically that shouldn't be a thing that works, for some reason James Wade has just perfected this, having a hair more than his opponent and it just carrying him through the season. So even with 4 points between them, it came down 3-2. But again, Matt Campbell's got a good game. The James Wade has a great game that he loves to just put in. I don't know if it's just right to say I don't know of a better word than effort. I'm sure it's more than just effort. There's probably a degree of luck. There's probably a degree of skill. But he usually just puts on that just a hair more than his opponent. So a 4-point difference in the averages, a bit of a struggle with it. When he came out of the gate taking the first set, I was like, I would have thought that would have been a little bit closer, but I also would have thought that almost Matt Campbell would get tired of it. So, I'll talk more about Matt Campbell later, but super impressive from him, and also surprising that James Wade couldn't fall back on his waiting techniques that have carried him through so much of his career. Not unwelcome, and looked quite the exciting showdown. And again, Canada, we love to see it, but that one did surprise me a little bit. Again, it would be a kind of scenario where when the draw came out, I'd go, oh, I sure wish our American and Canadian players would run up against seeds a little bit further down so they could get a little bit deeper. So, I'm chuffed for them, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But yeah, that one did, even though it shouldn't have, that one did kind of surprise me, it has to be said.
Well, we'll continue to talk about Ali Pally in a few minutes, but now let's hear from the longtime PDC referee refereeing in his final World Championships, and that is the voice, Russ Bray.
I'm pleased to say we're joined by the voice, Russ Bray. Russ, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Absolute pleasure. Thanks ever so much, Alex. Yeah, I'm doing really, really well. Thank you. Lots of bits and pieces going on. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, lots of bits and pieces going on. We are talking during the World Championships, but we've got to start with the news that broke around 3 weeks ago, the announcement that you're not stepping down, retiring from refereeing, but you're going to be taking a back seat as a full-time referee. Has the phone stopped with all the messages yet?
Yep. I'll sign a contract for the next 3 years as an ambassador for the PDC. In which case I will be doing the Asian tour, which I've been a part of since it started, and I also be doing some of the World Series. So I'll still be on TV, on ITV on those ones, in Bahrain, New York, and Australia, New Zealand. So but it'll be more of an ambassador role for the rest of the year. So I'm stepping down from all the major tournaments like the World Championships, the match play, Grand Prix, Premier Leagues, and all that sort of thing. So it'll give me more time to get my teeth stuck into finding other people, finding other players from around the world.
Yeah, it sounds like you're still going to be pretty busy in the ambassador role. But as far as you mentioned there, you're stepping down from covering the major tournaments in the PDC, something that you said you'd been thinking about for some time. So why did you make the decision to do that now?
Well, the thing, I'm 66 now, so I'm not a youngster anymore. I'm going to stop the actual refereeing like this at the very, very top. So the 2024 World Championship, we're going to call the final. I can stop at the very, very top of my career. And it's time now. This is my 28th World Championship, so I've been doing it a long time. There's a lot of youngsters coming through that are absolutely amazing. Charlie Cortherstein, I think, will be stepping in my shoes or filling in the space that I'm going to leave. Tall, good-looking young lad from Essex, great voice, great counter, and when you look at that, you've got your other guys that are there in Kurt Bevins, Hugh Ware, who's come on absolute leaps and bounds, and Georgie Noble, who obviously is an iconic referee in his own right. It's all in good hands within that. It's time for me to just wind down now, due to me age and evolution, I think they call it, where things are going forward. So, it's the right time for me as well. I'd actually thought about this and made the comment to the PDC 18 months ago. So, in respects of doing it then, now it's come to fruition.
What a career it's been. You mentioned there 28 World Championships in the PDC. You joined the organisation 1996. You've called 17 nine-dart finishes on TV, including the first one on live PDC competition, that one with Phil Taylor. But one moment I wanted to talk to you about from last year's event, something you've probably not seen before, was Gerwyn Price coming onto stage mid-game with the headphones. You were the referee for that game. What was your reaction when you saw him with the headphones on?
Well, it's funny because before that I was informed that Gerwyn would be coming on with ear defenders. Well, I thought it'd be like the things you actually put in your ear, like Merkin, the things you put in your ear to cut the noise out. But when he came on with like these proper ear defenders, which they were, they look like earphones on, because bearing in mind they're not allowed to wear headgear, which obviously it's not headgear, but they are proper defenders. Well, as I say, it was strange to say the least. It was strange to say the least, but they didn't last long. So it sort of made a bit of a comment, made a bit of a statement, and he took them off. So it was certainly different. Certainly different.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to yourself and this year. You mentioned about the Asian tour that's come back this year after a few years off with the pandemic. What's it been like seeing that tour get back up and running this year?
Absolutely brilliant. I'll tell you what, it's a great thing to do. You're going out to these fantastic countries in Asia and seeing the darting talent. And believe you me, there's a talent out there. The talent is good in depth now. It's starting to creep there. We've seen a couple of boys this week at the Worlds. Do very, very well. I thought the Filipino boys would have done a bit better, if I'm being honest, and I'm sure they feel the same because they are probably the best players in Asia. But seeing how they go, Kevin Leung was absolutely sensational in his game, and it was so good to see. And Goto from Japan, again, fantastic in what they've done. Watch out for these boys because they'll come up and they'll creep up on everybody, and in the end, you'll find someone, or we will find someone that will really, really contend at the very, very highest level. And once you do that, once you find one, the way Asia is built and the way the Asians are, I find one that you'll find 6 or 7, because that's what happens. Happens in snooker, happens in golf, and that's their way, that's their mentality. So the Asian tour is really, really exciting thing to be involved.
Yeah, some of the names you touched on there, Man Lok Lung, the 11-180s on his debut, Tomoya Goto winning on his debut as well. When you see those players go up there, you've watched them close up on the Asian tour and they're going up on that big stage and performing so well. Is it almost like a proud dad moment for you when you see them doing so well?
Not half. I mean, when the kids have come off the stage there, they'll come and give me a big cuddle and, they've got through. Yeah, it is, because like I say, I've seen these guys, sort of, 24 tournaments a year we do. And, see them at each tournament. Plus, you've got the Asian Championships, 25 tournaments, effectively. It's fantastic. You do get a bond with the players. And, you do want them to do very, very well. It's part of me being involved with the Asian tour. It sort of reflects back in that way as well. So it's absolutely terrific. You know what I mean? And they're lovely, lovely guys as well. They really are good fellas.
Yeah, it's great to see, and we don't want to look too far ahead, but you mentioned you are going to be calling the final of the World Championship. We're still talking the first and the second round going on. Have you pictured what that night's going to be like, that final World Championship, your 14th final, and only Bruce Spendley's refereed more than you?
Oh, right. Well, that I didn't know. It's a stat I didn't know. I'm obviously looking forward to it. It's always an exciting thing to do. The World Final, for sure. Mixed emotions, really. Yeah, a little bit sad that it'll be my very last one, but I'm really, really excited for the future. So, like I've been saying to people, that will actually close that chapter, and then I will start the next chapter in January. I haven't closed the book, so I'm not totally out of the game altogether. So I've got more excitement about looking forward, obviously, to the coming years, as well as calling the final.
Definitely, and nowadays we see with the referees it's a bit more smart casual with the polo shirts. Back in the day we had the suits. Are you going to pull out the suit for the final?
No, I don't think so. No, I shall be as is. It's a lovely thing that obviously it's my last final and I'm going to be calling it. But to be honest, it's the World Championship final. It's all to do with the players as opposed to me as the rep. I'm still just a rep in that sense. You've got a guy who's going to go up there, he's going to be world champion and win £500,000. At the end of the day, I am still just a rep that's going to be calling that particular game. So, no, nothing changes on that one.
And it's probably nicer as well just to have the polo shirts, because we watched back some of those old clips and you're wearing the suits. It must have been very hot wearing that on stage as well.
You ain't kidding. Not hot, very, very hot. I mean, it was one time that we were certainly in Blackpool. On stage got to something like 41 degrees. It was incredible. And we called in, we had to end up calling just in shirt sleeves, which I think very much prompted the way that we're dressed today.
And a few things I've been meaning to ask you. Some of our listeners are coming with some questions as well, but we know with the footballers back in the day, they might insure their legs when they're playing football. Did you ever insure your voice, as you're one of the most iconic voices there is in the game?
No, never done it. People have mentioned it. I've never actually done it, if I'm being honest. It's if I'm being 100% sure, I'm not sure if I could. I really don't know. I've never looked into it, and it's never something that I've really, really thought about.
Fair enough. Well, that 180 call, it is iconic in the game. Is there any place you can think of, the strangest place where someone's come up to you and said, "Oh, come on, Russ, give us the 180"?
I don't know. Pretty much anywhere you can think of, someone's came up and asked me. You've been in the loo or something, or the toilet. Various places. I can't think of anywhere in particular. In the middle of Tesco's, I suppose, something like that. It's like airports. I was one time in Germany. I put my passport through to the guy that does your passport there at customs, passport control. And he looked at me and voice, wait there. Obviously I couldn't go anywhere, he's got my passport. He came out, got his photo out of the booth, came round the side, took a picture with us, said, could I do a 180? I done a 180, went back in the booth, stamped my passport, and I went through. So, you know, you got some weird and wonderful things like that, I guess.
Good times. And a few questions from our listeners, and we've got a few questions from people that you'll know very well before we let you go. And the first one comes from Ollie. He says, do you or callers in general ever get nervous up on the big stage?
I don't think so now. I think we look forward to a game as opposed to get nervous. No is the answer from my perspective, and I'm sure it's the same with the other boys. You look forward to the game as opposed to get nervous. Done it too many times. You know, when I first done it, of course I got nervous. You know, that's oh dear, you know, your heart thumping in your ears when I first done it. But it's something you get used to. So when you get up on the stage there, you look at the crowd and think, wow, this is great, this is fantastic. Can't wait for the game to start. So no, don't get nervous, not these days.
That makes sense. And Squeeze wants to know, do you prefer calling quick players or slow players? And do players you've been calling for years still surprise you?
Right. I much prefer to call the faster player. And the reason I do that is because I have to concentrate more. I have the concentration in general of a gnat. Honestly, I am terrible. And if you've got a slow player, I will stand there and try his first dart. I think, oh, well, I'm going to have a Chinese tonight. He'll try his second dart. I think, yeah, we'll have King Prawn Curry, I think. Special fried rice. Tries his third dart, 100. Then and my mind drifts. My mind wanders. With the quick players, you can't. You know, you've got Gary Anderson playing Michael Van Gerwen. Bum, 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 but everything's rat-a-tat-tat that quick. That's where you tend not to make a mistake. I tend to make a mistake with slow players as opposed to quick players. So that's quick players. The quicker the better for me.
And Tristan wants to know, will you get more time to see the mighty Hammers when you step away from full-time refereeing?
Oh, I hope so. I've got a lot of good friends down there. I know the press officer and all the rest of it down there. So, you know, I can pop down there quite a few times. And it's lovely because you do something at the football, the training ground as well, out there in the back end of Dagenham. And, you know, I know some of the players in that sense. So that I will be doing as best I can.
And John Thompson says, do you think it's possible or desirable to get back to a stage where we have some semblance of the best of order from the crowd?
I think it's what it is now. When, you know, it's exciting as well. It is exciting. The majority of it is exciting. It's a lot of noise. It's a lot of bands. It's party time. It's happy time. You know, in all honesty, the players themselves, in general, it doesn't really bother them because you've got a constant noise. It's only when you get one clown that decides he wants to whistle at a certain time, you know, or one idiot that wants to call out. In general, you know, when you've got to stand up the darts and all that, and going on about the tables and that, it's just a general noise in the background. So I don't think it bothers. You know, it certainly don't bother most players. That's for sure.
And the next one comes from someone you'll know, John McDonald, who says, talk about his time as a high jumper when he beat Daley Thompson.
Of course, goodness me. Now we're going back many, many, many years. I used to compete for the Met Police Athletic Club and Thurrock Harriers when I was a youngster. And Essex Beagles was the club that Daley Thompson used to belong to. So he used to do long jump, sprinting, high jump, everything, because obviously he ended up becoming a decathlon. But this is back in the early days. Daley's about a year younger than me, I think, something like that. So I was they used to have a magazine called Athletics Weekly, and we done a tournament every other week in the British League, and we competed against Essex Beagles most weekends or most times. And in the high jump, it says first in the results, first Arbray, I think it was 195 or 2 meters, I can't remember. Second, Daley Thompson. So turned Daley Thompson over. High jumping, bearing in mind Daley Thompson was, you know, fantastic at 10 events. I was okay at one.
Well, still a great achievement. And we've got Gary Wood. He's got 2 questions for you. He says, ask Russ about the fantastic room we shared in the International Hotel in Beijing, and why did we end up staying there?
Right, we was actually doing the Shanghai Masters in Shanghai in China. And we flew to Beijing, a big group of us flew to Beijing and then went up the Great Wall of China. Well, when we come back, we got back to the airport, but the weather was so so bad they cancelled all the flights. So we had to stay in Beijing before we could fly out to Shanghai in the morning, back to where the darts was. So everyone, the airport was in absolute chaos. It was riotous. It really was. But we managed to get booked into the Beijing International 5-star hotel. And me and Gaz Wood, who was one of our markers at the time, he now runs all the Pro Tours at Barnsley Wigan. Lovely lad, one of my best mates, that's for sure. We shared a room in this Beijing hotel. We get there in the end. It was absolutely dreadful. The place was. Kept our clothes on, didn't have a shower or anything. Kept our clothes on because it was so bad. And the reason it was a 5-star hotel was because you could see all the staff at the roof of the ceiling at the room and that. It was absolutely dreadful. It really was. But it had to get us out. The only place we could stay. It got us out of trouble. But well, we did laugh, and even it was funny because even the young lad that shows you to your room and everything, he knocks on our door about an hour later. He said, "I won't be here in the morning. I've come for my tip." And it was just all this sort of thing, and the where you could buy some sandwiches and things like that. It was just behind the curtain. Honestly, it was the most incredible. If anyone, Beijing International Hotel, look it up on Google or wherever you could put it, because it was unbelievably bad.
Gary's second one, he says, when we did the very first South African Masters in Johannesburg, what happened when Russ called game shot on the match and glanced over to the scoreboard?
Right, as I say, Gaza was my marker on stage, and it was South African Masters, I can't remember what year, and we stood there, and Gary, where he's writing, the guy that actually won the event was a guy called Waynard Havinger, or Vinant Havinger was how he pronounced it. But of course, we're going through, boom, boom, boom. He's hit game shot. I turned around, game shot, and the match. Looked back to see what his name was, and Gary had written it off, rubbed it off. So I thought, oh no, I can't remember his name. I've got game shot. And the match, and didn't he do well, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, mate, it was so funny. It was so funny. As I say, totally. Where Gary had written his name up, I couldn't remember his name. It was we did laugh a bit afterwards. Tony Baynard actually, so we was okay.
And the last one, you might have to bring this up with him when you see him later. It comes from Wayne Mardle, who says, "Ask Russ why he's such a bang average golfer."
I'll tell you what, I've turned him over a couple of times so we can reverse that. Why is he losing to a bang average golfer? He's a great kid. I'll tell you what, I've known Wayne since he was 9, so we go back a long way. And to be fair, Wayne's a very good golfer. And we try to, as best we can, once every maybe 3 or 4 weeks, we'll meet within an hour of each other. Have a round of golf, go out, have a bite to eat, and then obviously nip back home. But and also when we're away, like we've been to Wolverhamptons and all the things like that, Blackpool and that, we'll go out and have a round of golf. As I say, he's a good kid, he's a good golfer, and but I do turn him over every now and again.
Happy days. Well, Russ, it's an absolute pleasure to chat to you. We appreciate you taking out the time and wish you all the best with your last World Championship and what else is to come in 2024 as well.
Alex, thank you very, very much for having me on again. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate all the questions everyone's put in and all the people that have followed me and support me over the last 27.5 years. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks to Russ for joining us. Now let's get back to talking about the World Championships, and I know you were there for some of this. First round defeats, though, for both of the female players at this year's World Championship. Fallon Sherrick going down 3-1 to Jermaine Waddamena, Mikuru Suzuki in straight sets against Pikachu Ricardo Pietreczko. Fallon, of course, pushed the informed Jermaine Waddamena, winning the first set and in contest in 2 of the other 3 sets, but Mikuru never managed to get going. How do you think they should feel, though, about their games entering 2024?
All right, so separately, we had what I think is just 2 different scenarios. For Mikuru, I know Meryl, aka at Asian Darts on Twitter, just said she looked tired, and I think for a lot of the kind of flack and banter of the occasional darts fans about international qualifiers, there does need to be a mindfulness of not only have these people traveled in, but also when have they traveled in. It's expensive to travel so far. Jet lag is very real. As you go up in age, it becomes more difficult to be jet lagged. Mikuru and I are not far off in age. I cannot show up anywhere and be functional at all within 72 hours. And Mikuru constantly comes over same day or the day before she appears in tournaments and challenges. And it is a lot to do. And then especially being up third game in the night so that it's just a long, long day and a long, long session. It's exhausting for somebody. I mean, it's exhausting when you sit in the press room. I'll put it that way, to just get into these longer sessions where people are battling back and forth. And even if it's exciting and fun to watch, or if it's a particularly awful one where people fail to get off the mark, it just feels like a long evening. So if you can imagine arriving from another country that's got such a great time difference and being there, I think she got in the day before, and trying to set yourself up and get some rehearsal, well, practice. You can tell I'm an ex-theater kid. Get some practice under your belt and get on the biggest stage in darts with the huge crowd behind you and see straight, let alone throw a dart. It is so impressive. And yeah, she didn't get it going. I think it might be taking a bit of a harder turn on her. I don't think it's indicative of how she should feel about her game. And I think the only reason that game maybe was potential for Mikuru to win, because Pikachu has been in fantastic form throughout the year, was really more around what Pikachu was saying about his experience in the Grand Slam, which is that if he's going to get booed, he's not going to interact with the crowd, he won't be disrespected. And as we know, it's not ideal to post anywhere where the media or social media can get a hold of that you don't like how something happens, you feel disrespected by something. It's better to just kind of, if you have to, put in earplugs to absorb the booze. And just, it is what it is. Especially as a German, I'm sure he's used to that German crowd support. But also be mindful of when you're on the Euro Tour, that, the Germans, whoever they're playing, get booed as well. So he's been in such incredible form. I actually didn't expect Mikuru to have a leg to stand on until I realized that he was quite emotionally invested in what the crowd was doing. And then I was like, this might be a slightly more even contest. So for Mikuru specifically, I don't think she needs to worry much about her game going into the year. She just needs to keep with her local events. She may need to contemplate if she needs extra time to come out. I'm sure her sponsors would give her extra time. She is a darting icon throughout Japan and has an incredible game to back it. So it might just be something that she considers coming out sooner for. And she's got a good spirit about it. Now, Fallon, on the other hand, that's a whole different beast altogether. Fallon obviously pushed Jermaine Wadimena, who had just come back into form. He's had decent form, but he's had a more in-form run lately. And she did push him. I know people absolutely lose their mind when you talk about Fallon or her game, but Fallon brings a lot to big stages, and her game on the floor, for a women's series thing, she might go out in early stages and struggle to be consistent. But as soon as those cameras seem to get on her, she just knows exactly where the treble 20 is and really fights it out to the last. So for her, one of the things I think will frustrate her is I think she'll be frustrated that once again, she's gone out. She's had the opportunity. She's pushed somebody. So she's not folded. She's pushed somebody, but she's not managed to get there. And I don't know how she will particularly assess her own game. If I were to assess her game, I think she needs another treble in her locker. She's always going for the treble 20, which obviously is the one that everybody wants. But I think if she were to practice and have a treble 19 swap like Eileen de Graaf has, she could be unstoppable. Because it's when that first one doesn't go in or the first two don't go in, having an ability to kind of reset yourself somewhere else on the board and get a treble somewhere can help break that up. So I think she has a lot to be proud of because she does find big games when it counts and when it matters. It'll just be super frustrating to her that it's not enough to get her over. So hopefully she's exhibiting or thinking about her own game and how to address the few weaknesses that she's got there. Because if you want to talk about getting consistent scores and always having consistency, it's really hard to practice for consistency. You can practice more so for strengthening your ability and board management. And I think getting another treble in her A game will really increase the likelihood that the next time she's out, she will get past that first round. And if the draw goes her way, I could see her very easily going past second and third round as well, because there's just something about the cameras that brings out the rage in people online and brings out Fallon's best.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the trebles there, because it actually reminded me of something I meant to say earlier when we were talking about who impressed me, and that was Daryl Gurney. And Daryl Gurney is a player who's historically been similarly known for not wanting to switch, stubbornly at times staying on the triple 20 unless the scoring indicated that he had to change, like obviously to leave a finish. But he would just stay on the treble 20, and I don't think I've ever seen Daryl Gurney look as confident and composed as he did in that match against Steve Beaton. And part of that was knowing that he could switch to another treble if he was blocked, and that was not the end of the world. And he chose 18s, not 19s. And maybe that's why he didn't like the switch to 19s. And now he learned, well, maybe I can just switch to 18s. It's a gentler switch. And it made him a much more confident looking player. And that's an interesting point you had made. And maybe Fallon could think of a similar thing. Maybe if she doesn't like the switch all the way down to 19s, how about a switch to 18s instead, like Daryl Gurney started doing? As far as where their games are, you said most everything there is to say. I'm not going to say that much more about Fallon. I think she is playing the best she's played in almost 2 years over the last 6 months. And I think she is continuing getting back to where she was when she was at her best. Still not there yet, but getting closer. And she had chances in that match against Germain. As far as Mikuru Suzuki is concerned, those are valid points. And the travel is always something that we just can only speculate unless we hear directly from the player themselves exactly how it affected their game. And it's something Mikuru, though, always has to deal with. And I still will be speculating how it played out in recent women's series. But I do want to point out that since lifting the title of the 17th women's series event, beating Lisa Ashton in that final in 5 legs to 1, going a ton plus average in the semifinals against Maria O'Brien. In 17 matches since then in the women's series, she's only managed to eclipse her seasonal average in 6 of them. And one of them was the very last match where she eclipsed it by less than 1/10 of a point, many of them significantly below. Now, part of that is she doesn't always need to play at her best to win, and that's something that makes it difficult to compare. We expect that when she's playing against someone who's going to push her, she's going to up her average, and often she did. She did perform above her season average in 6 of the matches, as I said, and those included matches against Lisa Ashton, Bo Greaves, and Fallon Sherrick. But it only only just above her season average, and 2 of those a bit more above it against Bo Greaves. But Bo Greaves beat her 4 legs to 1, and she was barely on a finish in many of those, which makes the average artificially higher than it otherwise would have been. So there is some sign that maybe she is below her best right now, and that raises question marks entering season 2024. And she was obviously below her best in the World Championships against Riccardo Pietreczko. I think there are question marks about her game. I know she's a better player than she appeared in that match. I think she's a better player than she appeared in the last 6 or 7 women's series events of the year. But that doesn't change that there are therefore some question marks. So I'm curious to see how she kicks off the season. I think she'll have every chance to get to the World Championship again next year. There's a clear-cut top, maybe 6 in women's darts, and she is unquestionably one of them. But it's going to be difficult and continue to get more difficult to qualify each year. And if she's playing like she did those last few months throughout much of the next season, then maybe she won't be back at Ali Pali next year, because I don't think that will, in the end, be good enough over a course of a full year to get one of those 2 or 3 spots.
And for our next guest, I was lucky enough to be up at Alexandra Palace for a few nights, interviewed a few different people. Thanks to Dave Allen from the PDC for arranging our access to that, as always. So in the spirit of checking names off of our list of tour card holders that we haven't interviewed, and also perhaps in having the most talked about contender in the running, now we will go to the full press scrums, me dead last per usual, for Niels Zonneveld.and Luke Littler, and we'll start out with Niels first, and then follow that up with Luke.
Niels, congratulations.
Thank you.
You came into Ali Pali this year having never won a set at this event. Now you just won your first game. Just how did that feel?
It felt really great, but I'm not happy with my game. You know, I'm playing really good the last month, and now it just really. At the end, really nervous. At the beginning, I just so relaxed, and I don't know. I'm happy with the win, but not how I played.
When you missed those match darts at the end there, Darren was coming back. Were you fearing the worst at that point?
Yeah, of course. I think it's 2-2, and last set was coming, but he didn't hit at all. So I'm happy to get the 3-1, but it had a bit finish really earlier, I think.
And you mentioned there earlier that you've been playing some of the best darts of your career over recent months. You got to the last 16 at Minehead last month. So do you feel like your best game is ready to come out here?
I think so, yeah. But the first round's always nervous and you want to come through. And now I think after play the second game with Ross Smith, I think I'm just really confident at the moment. And I think I can beat him. I can beat him, but he's a really, really good player. And if he plays his A game, I have to beat really, really good. But at the moment, I think I'm really confident. And when I play just so I think I can give him a game, but not like today.
Thanks, Niels. Best of luck.
Cheers.
Niels, we knew your record before this game at Ali Pali. What's it like coming back to this venue, and does it feel different now you've got a win here?
Oh, it feels different because the last 2 times I have to hold my tour card. When I win, I got my tour card holding. Now I win, and it's in my first year of my tour card. So it gives some relaxed. Or I don't know how to say, but if you're on the stage, you just want to win. It's the Worlds, and you play the whole year for this, so you just want to win. And I did it, but I'm not happy with my game.
How much more do you need to improve your game from tonight if you're going to defeat Ross Smith?
Really, really, really hard. But I think I will do, because the pressure is now off, and I just can play free the second round. But otherwise, I want to win anyway. So it's not enjoying or something. I just want to win, and when I win, I enjoy.
Do you feel like a big performance here, not just in that game, but in this tournament, could push you on next year? You've been playing some good stuff, and you're threatening getting in not top 32 yet, but pushing on to that sort of level.
Yeah, because it's a win, I think I improve myself. But yeah, you know, when Darren hit the doubles, it wouldn't be close. But I win, and it gives some confidence, not in my game, but not just I can win here. So yeah, it gives some confidence, and I'm really looking forward to the second game.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Niels, how were the nerves in that final leg there? If Darren Webster had taken one of those darts, how would you have been like in that final set, knowing that you missed all those darts to win?
Yeah, every time I come back, I said no nerves, just play like you can. But at the end, I missed too many doubles. I don't know how much, but yeah, I was not that nervous, but just finish the game, because otherwise you will let him in the game and it's 2-2 and you never know. So I'm really happy that I got through the last leg, but maybe he deserved the last one. I don't know.
In that situation, how tough is it when you've missed those darts and you've got to come back but waste a dart to get to a double? He was on 7, I think, twice.
Yeah.
So how difficult is it to just make sure that you get that big number? Is that almost the hardest part of those finishes, especially in those pressure situations?
I think sometimes yes, but the single 3 is, in my opinion, one of the easiest singles to hit. So I was confident about that. But the double 2, I was also confident, but I just didn't hit it. And I was like, oh, just don't give it away, you know. And at the end I didn't, but he had the chances really much.
And it is Ross Smith in the next round. He will be the favourite. Does that almost take a bit of pressure off you? Because number 1, he will be the favourite, and 2, you've now got a win here on the Ali Palace stage. Yeah,
I think so. I think I have beat some really good players on stage when I was not the favourite. So yeah, I think I can do it again. But if Ross Smith plays his A game, then he's really good. So I have to prepare for that, and yeah, just go on with confidence and play my A game.
Niels, big well done. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Niels, will you mix up your practice between now and your next game, considering?
Yeah, at the hotel, 3 days, and just give every day some hours, and yeah.
And you stopped working your day job earlier in the year. How have you found that has affected your game and your performance?
I think it affected it positively, because I played better than last year's. And before I did that, I was just a little bit angry because yeah, maybe I don't hit anymore because all the pressure is from darts. But I'm really young, and I think when I don't get it, I can always back to work. So no pressure about that anymore.
Sounds good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And next is the press scrum with Luke Littler.
Luke, many congratulations. That was absolutely incredible. Just try and put that experience into words.
It was a massive experience. I've watched the darts a few times. I know the crowd. They're always singing, and I'm glad they were on my side tonight. And it just even helped me over the line even more.
Surely, even in your wildest dreams, when you arrived at Alexandra Palace today, you couldn't have expected a performance and a night quite like that.
I knew my practice was going well, but I didn't think that I'd take it onto the stage, but I did, and I'm just glad I won the ball, because I won the first set on my darts, and then with Christian's darts I broke him, and then going into the third set, it was my darts, it was mine to lose.
And you've achieved so much already in your young career, but where does this night and this achievement rank amongst that?
Ranks at the top. I know I've won back-to-back Moda Super Series, but with the highest average on debut of the world, it's unbelievable.
You've had a lot of success on this stage in the JDC system, but how did it compare tonight, playing in front of a packed house, all supporting you?
Well, I've played in the JDC twice. There's not many people, they're just walking in for the afternoon, but tonight was just a whole different level.
And you had so much success on the Women World Development Tour this year, winning 5 titles. How much has that success given you the confidence to take on the biggest stage here?
it's given me massive confidence. Because the first set I was at the top before with 4 grand clear, and then over the next 16 to 20 I remained in the top 3, so I knew what I was in for. As soon as I beat Nathan Rafferty in Milton Keynes, I knew win that game and I've secured the world and the tour card.
And you've already made history at this event now. After a performance like that, how far do you believe you can go in this competition?
I just wanted to win tonight, so anything else is an overachievement for myself.
Well done, Luke. Thank you.
Thank you.
Luke, huge congratulations. I remember speaking to you in the build up to this and you were dreaming of this moment. Did it live up to everything you wanted it to be?
Yeah, walking on, everyone wanted me to sign everything. I couldn't sign everything, but it was just crazy to see even little kids with my own top on. It was just good to see.
Again, walking up there, 16 years old, you could have gone into your shell, but you thrived up there. Big celebrations, got the crowd involved. What did that mean, and how did you cope with the occasion?
I think that's what I want. That's what I needed to do. If it's a 180 or a big checkout, I'll have to give it some to the crowd, and then they'll just be on my side. And that's what I've done, and I just settled more than I thought.
If you can post those kind of numbers and that kind of performance all the way through, can you win this on debut?
I mean, if I average 106 in every game, I've got a good chance. But like I said, I've won tonight, so leading into tomorrow, I can just get all the nerves out the way, because I don't need to be nervous. I've done what I needed to do, win my first game. I know I need to win about 6 or 7 to get the title, but I'm just happy to win tonight.
Many congratulations.
Thank you.
Luke, did you feel nervous at all up there? You certainly didn't look it.
Walking on, I was nervous, but when I stepped onto the stage and I just said to myself, wow, I didn't want to go into my own shell. I just had to be myself, and I did.
Do you really enjoy these big occasions? It seems like you enjoy it as much as you can, and you get your best darts in these big stages.
Yeah, obviously I played in the Modus with a few hundred in there, but that was just a complete unbelievable experience for myself, and I'm just hope they can be on my side again tomorrow.
Even at this young age, have you thought about what you can achieve in this game?
Not really, no. I just wanted to win my first game tonight, and then going into tomorrow against Andrew Gilden, I can just settle. Thank you.
Luke, I don't know if you heard the crowd during the match singing "You've got to go to school in the morning." Did you hear that during the match?
Yeah.
What does that? You've got to probably stop getting distracted by things like that.
Yeah, I try my best to get distracted, but I don't have school. I've got a tour card now, so there's no school involved for me.
Okay. What will you do tonight? I mean, how will you prepare for tomorrow? Will you just try and go to bed early? What will you do? Will you do anything to sort of celebrate? What will you have to drink or eat?
I mean, I've not checked my phone yet. I know what that's going to be like, so I'll be up for pretty much early hours in the morning. But I couldn't sleep last night because I was just excited, and it'll probably be the same again tonight, knowing I'm playing tomorrow.
It's a bit like Christmas Eve for you, maybe.
Yeah, obviously I play Andrew tomorrow, and that's my main goal now, is to hopefully come back after Christmas. Thank you.
Luke, you've obviously watched this event as a kid growing up on TV. Does it feel quite surreal what you've just achieved up there tonight?
I can't put it into words. I've watched the Worlds for many years, seen everyone lift the title, loads of people, different people lift the title, but just from watching it as a little kid, I've done it. I've actually won a game on this big stage.
Growing up, who were your darting inspirations? I mean, do you feel you could be maybe the next Michael Van Gogh and the next Phil Taylor, perhaps?
Well, that's what a lot of people have said. They said I'm better than MVG. I just can't agree. I can't disagree, because I know what Michael done at his age, and I know what I've done at my age.
How much more do you feel you have in the locker, and do you feel you can back that performance up tonight against Andrew Gilden?
I just hope I can remain at if not a 106, just stay above the ton, because I know he's a slow thrower, and I've just got to find a rhythm. Thank you.
Luke, you saw in leg 2, just after 2 legs on that stage, you was already interacting with the crowd, cup in your ear. Does that just show how comfortable you were on the Ali Palace stage?
I think if not everyone, they need to get a leg or 2 on the board to settle, and that's what I've done after the first 2. Engage with the crowd, and it just got me fired up.
Everything was so quick for you lately. PDC World Championship, World Youth Championship, debut here, and you've got a tour card also for next year. Have you already thought of certain aims and objectives you want to achieve next year on the tour?
I've not even thought about what I get my mum and dad for Christmas. But Yeah, I know next year is going to be a busy one if I can qualify for loads of the tournaments, but this is what I've achieved. I know what's coming for me next year.
That was one of the most special performances I've ever seen on that stage or any stage. Could this be a match that we look back on in 40 years' time and think that was where Luke Littler was born?
100%. I'll probably go and watch the highlights when I'm back in the hotel. But yeah, I'm so glad I've won it tonight, and even with the high average and the 50% on the doubles, it's even better to look at.
Huge congratulations.
Luke, you dedicated that to Phil Taylor. Hopefully he was watching that.
I mean, he said in his interview he would be watching, so I hope he did watch. But yeah, I'm just glad to win.
The fact you were going out there, as you say, conducting the crowd, trying to get them, not many 36-year-olds would do that, but then 16-year-olds. Why were you doing that? Was that just part of your show, if you like?
Obviously, if you've not seen it, the modus, when I do it at 180 or a big finish, I'll cheer the crowd up so they're on my side. And I know there's a bit of needle when it comes to England versus Dutch, so I'm just glad that you were on my side.
Who's with you in your corner today? Who have you got that's come from Warrington?
My dad. I've got a friend, Mike Warren, from Liverpool, where I play Super League with him and Thursday League, and my friend Eloise.
You wouldn't have seen it, but the Warrington Wolves have sent you a message. So,
yeah.
Good look. Dave might have organised it. How does that feel to have the Super League team backing you?
Unbelievable. Obviously, I go to as many games as I can, and a lot of players have been following me on Instagram recently, so it's just good to look up to them.
Just to follow on that as well, Phil Taylor's actually already tweeted a message to you saying, great performance, Luke the Nuke, well done buddy, keep focused.
There you go. What's your reaction to that?
Unbelievable.
Luke, you can't drink legally, you can't vote, you can't bet, you can't drive a car yet. How do you celebrate as a 16-year-old when you perform like that on the Ali Pali stage? What are you going to do?
Probably just treat myself to a kebab. get myself some bottles of Coke, bottles of Fanta, and probably treat myself to some more vapes.
Between sets, you remained on stage where Christian went off to compose herself or whatever. Was that premeditated? Did you think to yourself, I'm just going to stay up there and stay in the zone rather than break your concentration by going off for a drink of water or whatever?
Yeah, that's what I'd done. I was 1-0 up and I just stayed on stage, just kept practicing, and then when I went 2-0 up, I thought to myself, you're 3 legs away from winning it, and I just had to go off because it's very hot up there, and I composed myself when I went off.
Luke, you've participated in as much darts as possible this year with doing this Moda Super Series and the development tour and everything. How has having that wide range of experiences helped to isolate your game to bring it here to a new venue for you?
Well, the more darts I play, the better I get. Obviously, I've had this year the development tour, the JDC, and even the WDF. So it's just helped me build up to this occasion.
And are you hoping to continue with your tour card, where you're going to do maybe development tour and pro tour at the same time?
Yeah, I've checked the calendar out. I'll be doing 5 sets of development tours, and then 2 or 3 players championships, and then even the Euro Tour qualifiers. So I know what it's going to be like for next year.
Excellent, congrats.
Thank you.
So again, thanks to Dave Allen for getting us into Alexandra Palace so that we could be in the press scrum for both Niels and Luke. We appreciate that very much. Only one regional qualifier, however, Jeffrey de Graaf, of Sweden, mind you, remains, but there were some really strong performances from the Asian players this year. So what did you make of Godo and Young's run, and what other international qualifiers caught your eye this year?
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned Jeffrey de Graaf having moved to Sweden. Last in the World Championships 5 years ago, representing the Netherlands, needed to win his match to save his tour card, but in the end fell, and now not back on tour yet, but playing well enough. Just true, really good performance coming from 2 sets down against Richie Edhouse, and then that match that we mentioned earlier against Jose de Sousa. So, I mean, as far as Jeffrey de Graaf, really impressive. And in case any of our listeners are saying, well, I'm looking at the list, there's more than just one left. The international qualifiers list also includes the tour card holder qualifiers, challenge tour, development tour, and 4 of those players are still in. But we obviously know that those players are good enough to compete in the PDC level because, well, the tour card holder qualifiers are tour card holders. The development and challenge tour will be next year. So we wanted to just talk about those international qualifiers. And I'll start with the two that you mentioned there from the Asian qualifiers, both of whom won their first round match before going out in the second round. Man Lok Leong, first, Jean Van Veen didn't show up, and there are some questions about where Van Veen's game is right now. The last couple months, he's a bit of significant regression. He looked like the next winner on tour, and he's struggled in the last month and a half or so, really struggled against Leung. But even if he was playing at his best, Leung was fighting tooth and nail with him in that and averaged well into the 90s, and in the last few sets looked the better player, and that's why he won. And really the only thing that did him in against Gabriel Clemens was experience. Clemens knew how to lift his game in the key moments in that match, and that's why he took that second set in a last leg decider, and he just was able to come back after Leung won that third set to 0 and not be fazed by it. Experience got Gabriel Clemens over the line, but Leung looks like a player who is every bit a future Pro Tour player if he decides to go over to Q School and give it a go. Really two impressive matches from him. As far as the Japanese player, Tomoya Goto, that first match against Ian White, let me first say, not safe quite yet. Could potentially drop off the tour if a couple things go against him. He'll need two players to jump him. Luke Littler, obviously, but the semifinal could do it. Quarterfinal needed for Richard Veenstra. But Ian White didn't play poorly. But Law just he could not figure out how to hit those darts to win those first two sets, came back, but then Goto just kept on trucking along, and a very solid 90 average. And yes, his average dropped in the second round against Ryan Searle, but that it didn't drop by as much as it might look like, because he was averaging in the mid-70s in that first set. He was, awful in the first set, but the rest of that match, he was pretty darn even, missing multiple darts, 3 in hand to win the second set. Did miss some darts to win the third set as well, but finally closed it out. And then Searle just hit the right shots in that fourth set. It was not a 3-0 set. It might have been on the on the actual scorecard, but it was a closer set than that. Goto playing more close to that 90 average that he had in the first round, once you take out just how poor that first set was. Really, again, impressive. And the bottle that he showed, even though he missed some of those darts to win that second set, the bottle he showed in both matches to be able to calm himself after a bad dart and come back, or after a bad turn, to come back and throw in a 180 or throw in a ton plus finish, just really impressed me. I think he's a player that I don't think we saw the best of. I don't think we saw the best of Leung either. But just for a couple of other players, Darren Penhall of Australia, really impressive in that first round against Jules Van Dongen. Van Dongen, as I said a few times recently, has regressed over the last few months after he looked top 10 in the world in much of the summer. Played fairly well, but Penhall played the best we've seen from him, including his time on tour. And I'll mention Alex Spellman. I mentioned him earlier. A really good performance. He's a player that I think is the most talented player in the CDC. Yes, he's 0-5 against Stowe Bunce this year, but had a higher average in all 5 matches. He has a very good game, and I think he's more consistent than the commentators gave him credit for. There was no chance against Ryan Joyce because Ryan Joyce was unbeatable. And finally, Pablo Nebrita missed some darts that could have beaten Simon Whitlock, but a very strong performance, fighting back every time Whitlock looked like he had the upper hand in that match. Didn't win, but a match that he absolutely could have, and probably is going to feel like should have won.
Yeah. In terms of, not much to disagree with, but in terms of Leung and his game, I think that one, even though Gian didn't bring everything to that, I did think that was quite intriguing. Obviously, it was quite the battle for him to take the first set, and it's quite the battle for him to take the second set. They went right down to the wire. So I didn't think that he was going to necessarily run away with it, as it were. But it's really hard in the set play when you have 2 full sets for somebody to make it back without you, especially when you're going all the way, to make it back without, putting in a real hard yard. So that one was super impressive, and I think that is worth noting. Tomoya Goda, again, did a great job in Diamond White, was performing decently, not at the highest part of his game, but just couldn't stitch it together. And again, not nearly as close as the other match, but I really thought that John, with that 2 sets to 0 lead, would manage to creep over the line. So I was quite impressed with how Leung held it together and proceeded with his game. Other people, I mean, you've taken Alex Spellman. Alex Spellman was fantastic. It wasn't a shock, but I really think that the 3-1 scoreline doesn't paint the picture. I was there watching, and just at that point in time, of all the sessions that I had been to, it was the highest scoring session, and was so exciting to see a first round match that was getting these large averages and getting proper big checkouts, and was so exciting to be there. And I really did think that in the end, Alex Spellman was going to come out at least 3-2, possibly even on top. And I'll also mention, even though he got whitewashed, so it seems kind of a weird thing to mention, Ben Robb is someone who I thought, Veenstra's got a long history. He was favorites for the WTF, was it the BDO? One of those two. He was a favorite to win that. He's been playing a lot. Again, you deal with the fact that he has less distance to travel. And then, crowds and things. The people in the crowd love a Dutch player if there's not going to be an English player around. And there was not much. They both didn't perform to their highest standard, but there wasn't much in it. And there was such a gap in the averages that I'm still stunned, I think, that he didn't manage to get a set on the board. I really thought that he was going to push it all the way and probably overcome. And so when it closed out 3-0, I was actually so stunned that they asked me if I wanted to be in on Veenstra's press scrub, and I said I legitimately don't have any questions for him. I was just that level of engaged and kind of shocked that there was no back and forth to it really on paper. And the other one I want to mention, even though he did not bring his A game, but I think it's worth mentioning because it's a first. And hopefully it won't be the last, and hopefully we'll see more and more, because the more places that darts goes, the better it is for darts. And that, of course, is to be Treacle, winning over Mario van den Bohara, who did not bring his A game either. And sincerely would have thought that he would have gotten his tour card. So he wasn't the first Frenchman to get a PDC tour card, even though he did try his hand at Q School a bit. But then to be the first French person to win on the World Championship stage is notable. And if he can get whatever nerves out, or just for the sheer fact of having experienced it now and knowing what to make of it, Hopefully we will see him back again. Hopefully he'll get his tour card. And if he doesn't get his tour card, hopefully he'll come through and qualify again. And we'll see more of him on that World Championship stage. Because again, every new country where we get a winner that gets through is just fantastic for darts. And he's definitely got a much higher average in his game than what he brought. He can make it out of the 80s easy. So, congrats to him for making it through, and hopefully we will see more of France going forward.
Well, unfortunately, we won't be seeing more of France going forward in this particular World Championship, but we will see a bunch more darts going forward. 31 more matches, 24 of them to be played in the few days between Christmas and New Year as the field gets whittled down to just the last 8. The schedule is out for the last 32. Now, we'll ignore the Gary Anderson against Boris Kursmar match because that match will be played alongside 2 last 16 matches. But of the 5 sessions involving 3 last 32 ties, if you had to attend just one, which one would you want it to be?
I know immediately which one I want it to be. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think from what I'm seeing on social media, our friend Wim is going to be at that one. So jealous. And that is the Friday afternoon session on the 29th, where we have Barry Van Peer versus Damon Hedda. We have Christoph Ratajski versus Johnny Clayton. And we have Jim Williams versus Raymond van Barneveld. What a session. First of all, we've seen Barry has really been coming back in form. He's kind of chased off that dartsitis. What a story that he's made it into this round. And also, I love Damon. I know people are sick and tired of the silly walk-ons. I'm not. Have fun with it. If he's doing it for himself, if he's doing it for the crowd, who cares? Last Wood was fun. I loved all of them. The more people that rant about it, the more I love them. Bring it on, I say, in my troll energy. Christoph Ratajski's got a special place in my heart because we were in Gibraltar when he won his first Euro Tour. In fact, we were in Gibraltar when Damo won his first Euro Tour. So I think it's fun to watch him play, but also love Johnny Clayton. So in terms of if I were to pick somebody out of which player do I enjoy watching more or am I more committed to, both would be great. And, maybe root a little stronger for Johnny Clayton, because I know that he says that he's struggling still upon the loss of his father. So wishing good things for him at the end of the year after such an awful, awful year. And then to finish off that session, you have Jim Williams versus Raymond van Barneveld. And I know everybody's excited about what Barney can do, but after what Jim did with Peter and after knowing what he has and him having those few games under his belt, it could be very exciting. And I hope it's very exciting. And I also please don't kill me, Dutch people. I do love you. I do kind of want Jim to win. But it would be so exciting to be there. And in terms of all the other sessions, will there be other excitement? Absolutely. But hands down, if I was not going to be working, which unfortunately I am, this would be the one I'd want to be at.
Well, it should be a very good session. Well, hopefully our listeners don't realize that you picked the one session that has no English players. But actually, it's also a session that some of my friends from Houston are going to be at as they are heading over for the World Championships to watch. So definitely a good session. I had a couple that were in mind, and I still don't know which one I want to attend. I mean, the sexiest session's obviously the first evening back on the 27th, where you have the reigning world champion Michael Smith, you have the former world champion Michael Van Guren, you have the future world champion Luke Littler, and you also have some pretty decent players as well going against them. But the one I think I would most want to attend is the one that ends up having the most English players, and that's the Thursday afternoon on the 28th of December. Florian Hempel done enough now to save his tour card, winning through the tour card holder qualifier and then playing 2 pretty good matches, but he's going against someone who I mean, I was talking about how Luke Littler is a future world champion. Stephen Bunting might be as well. He's a former world champion in the BDO. He might be a future one in just a week's time if he continues playing the way he has been. He has never looked this good, and he has looked pretty darn good in the past. Bunting is just playing some darts right now. Joe Cullen against Ryan Searle, two players that when they are firing, they're firing, and it should be a fun match to watch, even if they're not, because of the pace they play at and the fact that, they're fun players to watch. And then finally, Ross Smith against Chris Dobie. That's a match that Dobie averaged over 100 in the first round. Ross Smith didn't. But even when Ross Smith's off, he's still throwing a 180 every other leg. That's going to be a high-flying affair. I think that's just going to be a fun trio of matches. I probably just jinxed all three of them, but that's probably the one I would want to attend if I could only attend one. Anything else for this week?
Again, thanks again to Dave for allowing us into Alexandra Palace. I was going to be up there a little bit more than I expected to be, but the Christmas work schedule and everything got a bit out of hand. But we do appreciate the offer to be there and get to speak with some of these players. And thank you to our sponsors this year. We've got a few new ones, so that was very exciting to be a part of. And also thank you for the people who are starting to join us for our yearly awards. We are selling the naming rights to our awards, and they are going quickly. So we just appreciate that people are enjoying what we're doing and willing to sponsor us to do more of these things. Considering I don't speak to everybody very often and it is Christmas, happy holidays to everybody, and enjoy the rest of the darts, and enjoy the darts for the year ahead. Lots of big things in store, and where else will you find all the big things in store than right here? So we hope that you join us in the new year.
And if you don't join us in the new year, then at least don't tell us that you didn't. No, but you should join us in the new year. As you mentioned, we'll have those award shows coming up pretty soon. Right after the World Championships, I think we'll start taking nominations, and we'll try to get it around the same time that the PDC has their award show. A lot to look back on at that point, but we still have another 31 matches to go until then. I think Alex and I will be back on New Year's Eve to recap the next two rounds and to preview the quarterfinals, and then we'll come back after the World Championships to look back on the entire event. But until then, don't even hang tight. Why would you hang tight? It's just about enjoying the darts now. Even if Alex is not here, someone has to say it. So enjoy the darts, and we'll talk to you for the quarterfinals.